Hello, Gen Genies. It's me, Julie.
And Rich.
Before we get started today, we want to let you in on some exciting news. We have launched our new Patreon page for the podcast.
Woohoo! We are super excited about this new chapter for CutOff Jeans.
So, Patreon is a website where listeners like you can pledge a small monthly amount. We're talking only $5 or $10, guys, to support the podcast and help defray the costs of bringing you the show each week.
To be clear, CutOff Jeans will continue to be absolutely free. But to thank you for your support, we are going to offer our patrons some fun little extras.
Like early access to the podcast every week, where you'll get to hear the latest episode before it's released to the general public.
And why not make your friends jealous with exclusive patron-only CutOff Jeans swag?
Fancy. And here's something you guys have been asking for, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to host a monthly, hour-long, online Ask Me Anything session where patrons at the $10 level can literally ask me anything.
Anything? You're a brave woman, Julie.
You know, I know. I'm also going to give access to my blog, Are You My Father?, where I tell the story of my search, actually it's my life story basically, for my biological father in even more detail than I did on the podcast.
Wow, your blog was the original inspiration for CutOff Jeans, wasn't it?
It was.
Wow. Well, all patrons at any level will receive a shout-out on the podcast, along with our undying gratitude for your support.
Yep. You guys know that this show is a labor of love for me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It'd mean so much to me if you would consider supporting our work here on the podcast by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast.
That's Patreon, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast.
We'll add a link to it on the podcast and on the Facebook page. Thank you all, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Woo-hoo.
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Genes, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I'm Julie Dixon Jackson, and I am a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the producer and co-host of this podcast. This is a new world, Julie, since we last recorded.
I can't see you. It's weird.
I know. So,
yeah.
Folks, if you've been listening to the podcast, it might have sounded like we were coming from a different world because it was all recorded about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, we need to be clear about that because the last couple of episodes might have sounded a little too casual regarding what's happening now.
Right.
And in fact, somebody asked in the Facebook group yesterday, if we were still doing this together, and they were worried about us.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So no, we haven't seen each other in 3 weeks, guys.
And we're still not seeing each other.
No, and here we are. And yes, because we tried doing it with the video, but strange things kept happening.
We're trying a new thing here, folks. So if our audio doesn't sound like it usually does, it's because we're recording through an online platform, and we are we had to turn off the video because it kept skipping. So hopefully this works out. Like I said, it's a new world, and we'll just try this and see how it goes.
Yeah, we're all in this together, everyone.
Oh,
Let's just see what happens.
So, Julie, even though,
yes.
3 weeks ago feels like a year ago with all the news and everything, how are you and your family doing?
Well, we're fine. We're still here. The only one that's actually left the house is me because I have to go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
But I did the largest I did grocery shopping on Friday, and I got what I thought I needed. Now, remember, we have an extra mouth to feed in our house. My brother-in-law is living with us right now.
Yes.
So, and then my daughter is usually at school. She's not anymore. And so normally I make dinner for 3 of us. Now I have to make dinner for 5 of us.
Oh my gosh.
And so I have to up my portions and double my recipes. So, so I went on Friday and I thought I did a really good shopping. Well, I was wrong because basically everything was gone by Monday. Not gone, but like the necessities,
right?
Staples. So I went Monday morning and I did a huge shopping. And luckily the shelves were actually pretty stocked. I finally got some rice and some other staples. There's finally enough pasta in the stores to where I don't have to panic buy it. And I got a lot of meat. And my husband actually offered to buy me one of those chest freezers, which I've been asking for years, by the way. But that would be very helpful if I could like freeze stuff, because our fridge isn't big enough for all this stuff.
It's a whole new world. I usually eat at my job, which I no longer am doing because I was laid off. As with most of the world as a non-essential business. So I have to learn how to cook now. Isn't that nice?
Oh dear. Either that or get or order in a lot.
I never realized how much I ordered in or ate out, and suddenly I'm eating more meals at home.
Us too. This is the longest we've gone without eating out. It's crazy.
I know.
It feels really weird.
First world problems, but still, it's just
absolutely.
I can't believe I can't go to my favorite restaurant, Julie.
It's actually not that different for me personally, because I'm very much a homebody and I work from home, and most of what I do is from home, and I just go out to do essential things and visit friends occasionally. But it's not that different for me. Although I'm feeling a lot. I have like a bunch of cases right now that I have more than enough time to solve if I could, but they are very difficult cases. And it's so frustrating because, I have all the time in the world to sit around and work, but they're just...
I have to say that I'm also, when I'm not performing, I'm home writing. And so I would say that it hadn't changed that much, but I feel what's going on around me, and it's hard to stay away from looking at the news and reading the news online. And so it feels very different for me, even though I guess my life, other than not going to work, not going to perform, is it's still the same, but it feels completely different.
Well, your home evenings, I mean, that's big for you because you spend like 5 nights out, 4 or 5 nights out. Yeah. So that's huge.
Yeah. And even like knowing that I have to get ready at a certain point to go out and, put on my Richard Castle outfit to go out into the world.
Richard Castle. I would love to know what that looks like.
Oh yeah. You can go as me as Halloween. There's a mask.
Is it like a tux?
It's sort of, it's not a tux, but it's, dressing up and, class with a capital K.
Class.
Yeah. I haven't worn a suit in 3 weeks. So
I haven't worn clothes or a bra in 3 weeks. I literally, and today actually I put on clothes to do this just so I didn't feel so schlumpy. But I was in pajamas up until 3:00. So
we're going to have to start a new one. This is for patrons only. It's the Naked Podcast, where you still can't see us, but Julie and I are in separate rooms and we're naked.
Just naked. I also need to do, because people are probably wondering what happened with my husband and his brother after the cruise.
Yes, he was on a cruise.
He was on a cruise when last we spoke. So they let them off the ship. Everything was fine. And in fact, they did minimal coverage of, like, they didn't take anybody's temperature, or I think they just wanted to get them out of there.
That puts me at ease.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Well, that was 2 weeks ago. So
yeah.
And but then they had to fly across the country, and they were in the Fort Lauderdale airport or the Miami airport, which was packed with people.
Wow.
And then they got home, and then Mike got sick. Mike was sick. He had an ear infection, and he was just feeling really crappy. So he went to the ER.
This is your brother-in-law.
This is my brother-in-law. Mm-hmm. So he went to the ER, and they gave him a coronavirus test, and he also had an ear infection, and he had influenza A.
Oh, well, they say that's better, because if the flu, that means you don't have coronavirus.
So he had that, but then we still had to wait for the coronavirus test to come back. So he had to wait a week for that.
That must have been
and we're thinking,
kind of
so
terrifying.
If he has it, we all would. Yeah. So if he had it, we all would have had it, because we live in the same house. But he didn't. So that's a relief.
Wow. Thank goodness.
Yes. And then the next part is my brother, Rob. If you recall, he was supposed to be here today.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So he was in South America, all over South America. And as it was getting closer, I was like, are you sure this is going to happen? And his wife was going to meet him here. And I was saying, I don't know if you should get on that plane to here, because I don't know if they're going to let you back.
Right.
And then eventually he canceled coming here. And then a couple days later, he was like, we got to get out of there. We've got to get out of here. And Peru shut down the airports. He was in Peru. And they shut down the airports. He couldn't get a flight out. And he was stuck with his friends in a hotel in Peru for 2 weeks.
Oh, my God. Away from his family?
Just with his friends. His family is back home still.
Yeah, in Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So he was, I actually, on one of my Australian Facebook group pages, Australians in LA, somebody from ABC News in Australia said, hey, is anybody stuck anywhere? Can I talk to them? And I was like, hey, my brother is. So she interviewed him and did an article about him. And then he did a radio interview about it too, just to get attention. Like, hey, we're still here. Just so you know.
Did it work?
Well, I don't know if what I did worked, but they did get a lot more attention. They finally got a private charter airline.
Wow.
Opened up a flight to them
because there were no regular airlines doing that flight anymore. Yeah.
No, but so my brother got on it at the cost of $5,000 economy.
Oh my God.
And then, because Australia has closed its borders, he is now in Sydney in a hotel room for 2 weeks. So he still doesn't get to see his family for another 2 weeks.
And what is he, just like ordering room service?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
He's literally in a hotel room that he can't leave for 2 weeks when the windows don't even open.
Julie, I'm so sorry to hear that. I know how much you were looking forward to seeing and meeting your brother for the first time in person, and the same for him to meet you in person. And
right. Yeah. Well, stranger things, I was going to say stranger things have happened, but I don't know if they have.
I know.
But it is, it is what it is. Ugh, I hate that saying. But where, it's a different world right now, and hopefully we'll come out the other side better for it.
God, I hope so.
We're going to have a lot of rebuilding to do. It's so weird. It's like just everything in the past, I'm going to say it, the past 4 years, it feels like a self-fulfilling prophecy for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but it just seems like everything that we feared is coming true.
And I just want to say, I can't imagine that we wouldn't come out of this, and at least in the United States, and not have universal health care, because it seems to me that this is highlighting how important it is that we are all, human, and we all need care. And it's not just for ourselves.
That almost every other country has it.
Yeah, but we're dependent on everyone else at this point,
Yes, exactly.
It's made me think a lot about how connected we are, especially since things like this, Julie, where, you don't live very far from me. And when you come over and we record the podcast, we can be in the same room. And here we are trying to simulate that. It's not the same.
No, it's not. It's very strange.
Yeah.
It's very strange, Rich.
I know.
So I guess we should maybe start talking about some DNA stuff.
Yes, but I just want to say to all of our listeners, I hope that you're all well.
Yes.
We're here for you, and we'll just try to keep it as light as we can. We know this is a really dark time, and we will just try to do what we do.
Right. I tried to do an Ask Me Anything for the Patreons last week on the private Facebook page. With just the Patreon users. It didn't go very well.
Oh no, why not?
It was the delay of people asking questions is just too long.
Really?
And it feels like it's 2 or 3 minutes for the question to come in. And it was not good. So I need to find another platform. Maybe I'll try to do it through Zoom or something.
We are on Zoom right now.
We are indeed.
And I used to watch the TV show Zoom when I was a little kid. Do you remember that on PBS? Zuma, Zuma, Zuma.
I don't, because I was not in the country then, but I know all about it because my generation talks about it all the time.
See? Have you gone back and watched it on YouTube or anything so you know what it's all about?
I'm sure I saw reruns or something.
I couldn't tell you anything that happens on the show except other than the opening number where they all sang Zoom.
Zuma, Zuma, Zoom. Is that it? Wait, we talked about this on one of the first episodes.
Oh my God.
And I told you that I thought a friend of mine was on it.
Yes.
And it turns out he was on Zoobly Zoo.
Zoobly Zoo.
We've come full circle.
Oh my God. 95 episodes later. All right.
You know what? Things always repeat. Things always come back in fashion.
What's going on in GNA?
Nothing. Okay, fine. Blaine Bettinger said, had a statement that he wanted to tell everybody, so I'm going to share it with you guys. And he said, be wary of third-party DNA analyses using your raw autosomal DNA data file, particularly health and nutrition analyses. Some, such as Prometheus, which I have used before, are legitimate analyses, but the vast majority are not. They typically offer analyses, I keep saying analyses, I don't know if it's supposed to be analysis, that are not scientifically validated. In this example, the company, he has an example that you can't see, but the company, which is called Xcode, doesn't understand how ethnicity estimates are formed, which certainly gives me pause about any interpretation they provide. So this harkens back to the time I was talking about that one company in Canada. That may have been this company. That was in Canada. It's beneficial. You get a tax break or something if you can prove that you have Native American
blood, yes.
DNA, yes. And so they were just sending out random DNA analysis from tests that were sent in saying, you have this much Cherokee and this much. And so somebody sent in their dog's DNA, their Chihuahua. I think you remember this. And it came back that he was part Cherokee. Yeah. So I believe that is what Blaine is talking about there. And there are still companies like that. My mother-in-law did a DNA analysis through a doctor, like a naturopath, or what is it called?
I couldn't tell you. Yeah, I'm Jewish. We don't go to natural doctors. Jews don't. We only trust medical science.
Holistic.
We do not.
A doctor who emphasizes holistic medicine, I guess. And then, so she has a diet that is based on those things. And I don't know anything about the company that she uses.
Julie, you show me a Jew who goes to a holistic doctor, and I'll show you a heretic. I'll show you someone who's killing their mother. Killing her. You're killing her. What are you doing? Going to the kafaka doctor. Go to a real doctor. And he better be Jewish.
A fakakta.
Fakakta.
Did you just try to say fakakta?
I did, and I screwed it up because my grandmother's been dead so long, I forgot how to say it. Isn't that sad?
Yeah, it sounded like a dirty word, actually.
Grandmother's turning over in her grave.
Okay, moving forward, I got a message on February 25th from James Lally, who is a listener from the UK.
Okay.
And he gave me this interesting little tidbit that said, technically speaking, half-siblings with the same mother will share a bit more genetic information than half-siblings with the same father. This is because we get all of the DNA in our mitochondrial DNA, which obviously comes from our mother's, our cells' energy houses, which if you've been to college, you know that, from our mother and none from our father. My daughter knows that anyway. This is because only eggs provide the mitochondria for the embryo. The sperm doesn't give any to the embryo. Once again, women, more important. So half-siblings with the same mother have the same mitochondrial DNA, but half-siblings with the same father have different mitochondrial DNA because they got it each from their mothers. This extra mitochondrial DNA doesn't add up to much of a difference, though, because it makes up less than 0.01% of our total DNA. So the more you know.
Right. Thank you, listener from the UK.
Thanks, James. Should we take a break?
Why not?
Okay, I'll see you on the other side.
If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and
Me.
Okay, we're back.
Hello.
Hello there.
I know you're out there somewhere, Julie.
It feels like dating in the dark. Or, oh my gosh, we have to talk about this for a second. Did you at all attempt to watch Love is Blind?
What is that?
I think it's on Netflix. It's another dating show where people have conversations in pods where they can't see each other.
No,
and then get engaged.
I don't watch dating bachelorette shows.
Yeah,
I find them very distasteful.
I do too. I will agree with you. I got through the first 1.5 episodes, I think, and then I was done. But I thought,
I will say though, I did get on the Tiger King train, and I started watching that, and it's very addictive.
The whole thing.
I think I've watched 2 episodes, and my jaw I'm still picking up my jaw from the floor. It's like crazy.
It's horrifying. As an animal lover, it's horrifying, but you can't look away. It's like a car wreck.
It's like a tiger attack.
Yes, exactly. Well, and as an homage to the Tiger King, I'm doing a paint by numbers of a tiger.
Are you really?
That's what I'm doing to soothe. That's the only thing I have to do that's not work at home. Other than making dinner. So I'm doing, every time I get frustrated with work,
is it on velour paper or
No, it's on it's an actual paint by numbers on canvas.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which I love, and it is so soothing to me because it's the same as I haven't been doing any hair either, because obviously nobody can come to my salon.
Right.
And that's usually very therapeutic for me too. But in this case, so I have to find. And I have been making masks, by the way, guys. Maybe I should start sending masks out to
our patrons. That's not a bad idea.
Themed masks.
Everyone would love to wear a mask that says "The truth is in my jeans."
Wait a minute. I think you're onto something.
Oh my God, that would be funny. Well, people are going to start making fashion statements if everyone has to wear a mask now. But you were talking about some dating show or something, some blind date.
I don't need to get any further into that. I just was curious. I was just curious if you had tried it.
I have not.
Yeah, I'm binging a lot of things, and I'm trying a lot of things, and that lose me in the first episode, and that was one of them. So
I'm binging only on food at this point. I'm at home all the time, and it's like a snack. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. I take regular trips to the fridge.
As if America wasn't already obese enough. Now we're all under lockdown and eating ourselves out of house and home.
And so many carbs because I'm making, I have to make full meals for 4 other people. And so,
everybody I talk to is baking. I don't bake, but everyone I know on Facebook is like, oh, I'm home. I'm going to bake. And they want comfort food. And so, yes.
My daughter and my husband have been making bread. They love to do that.
We're all gonna emerge from our homes 20 pounds heavier.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't doubt that for a second. Lily is actually standing here looking at me. Do you want to talk to her?
Hi, Lily.
Come here and just say hello to the listeners, Lil.
Hello. Hi, everyone. We're all home. Hope you're home too.
You're not on your game at all right now.
Lily and I ran into each other on the street last week.
Yes, you guys ran into each other on the street last week.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
That was crazy.
My evening walk.
Yes.
And we stood 6 feet apart and we said, oh, hello, and air hugs.
Yeah, you guys did air hugs from a distance.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was nice to see you, Lily.
He said it was nice to see you, Lily.
It was nice to see him.
Okay. Now leave. Okay.
It's bye. This is like when I was a kid, put your mother on the phone. Put your mother on the phone.
Exactly. That was today's version of that. Let me talk to her. Okay. All right.
Is she still there? Is she in the room? Is she listening? Is this a party line?
A party line. Hi, Pillow Talk.
We're doing Pillow Talk.
Yes. I love that movie. Okay, Doris Day, everybody. Yeah. All right, so let's get back to the case at hand. I have a story from the trenches.
From the trenches, yes.
Yes, from the trenches. This is one of the ones that I have been able to solve lately. Thank God. Well, it's almost solved. There's kind of a little hurdle to still get over, but I'll tell you about it. Okay, so this lovely lady was born in 1955 in Reno, Nevada, and she knew nothing about her parents. all she was told was that her mother was a petite blonde and both of her parents were very career oriented, which is why apparently she was given up for adoption. Okay. So I started doing the research, and both of the lines were firmly implanted in North Carolina. So I triangulated both sets of grandparents. And of course, I didn't know which was maternal and which was paternal because I had nothing to go on. And then I started to research the possibilities. I finally found that one of the potential fathers, so now I had like several brothers and sisters on each side that could be a potential mother or father.
Okay. Yes.
So I basically had to research every single one of them. And I finally found one of the potential fathers on one side was living in Reno, Nevada in 1955. And in fact, was just a few blocks from the hospital that my client was born. So I was like, oh, well, I guess that must be the father.
That's a lucky find.
Well, yes. Well, that's why you have to leave no stone unturned, my friend.
Yes.
So then I started looking on the other side for the mother, I guess. And there was one sister, and she was already married and had 3 kids by 1955. And there were no other sisters. And they were all in North Carolina once again. So I had to, once again, think outside the box and went back and finally came to the conclusion, which makes the most sense, that the one brother that lived in California, I believe that one of the sisters must have gotten pregnant and went to live with him in California while she was pregnant and had the baby in Reno and then went back.
Wow.
So there were 2 sisters, and one of them never married. No, one of them married much later in life. They were a very religious family. And I don't think either of them ever had kids. There's one that I'm leaning towards she worked in banking her entire life, and she got married in her 40s. So I think that was probably the mother. But that's where we are now. And I have to reach out to these people for something. And basically everybody has already passed on.
Right. Because your client was born in 55, you said?
Exactly. Yeah. So I have to reach out to, I guess, potential cousins.
Or maybe siblings, if she had any other.
Or possibly siblings. Right. I mean, I know of who would probably be cousins to reach out to say, hey, I think maybe your uncle was the father of this woman in 1955. Do you think you want to test? That's as far as I can go. Right. You know what I'm saying? So I'm attempting to reach out to family now on both sides. This is a situation where it's hard to know how to present it, I guess.
Yeah.
To people. And I have done that before, actually. I had when I was a search angel, I figured out who a lady's father was, and he was in the Air Force. And I reached out to his living sister and gave her the whole story. And they basically said, we don't want any part of this.
Yeah.
Even though she had a living niece.
I know. I know. But their allegiance, they feel like, oh gosh, they don't want to drag someone's name, possibly.
He was like, but he wouldn't have even known. That's, you know what I mean? He was in the Air Force, and I didn't mention this, he died. He died in an airplane crash. So there would be a living niece from this older brother that she barely got to know.
So she could have looked forward to meeting a new relative rather than.
Right. There's a different way of looking at it, and they chose not to look at it that way.
Yes,
I guess.
Yes.
And and I guess I can't judge people for how they look at it. I just feel badly for the adoptees.
Yeah, yes. I agree. But I also wonder, maybe you know more than I about this, but do people have a change of heart sometimes, right? Maybe their initial knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And then maybe after a while thinking about it, like,
possibly that has not happened in this case, however.
No, not yet. Right.
Yeah. So,
but you've told me about clients that you've reached out for on the behalf of clients, and people were like, "Oh, I don't want to have anything to do with them," and then later they sort of come around, right?
Or they've not said, "I don't want anything." Oh, no, they have. The ones that say right up front, "I don't want anything to do with them," usually don't come back. But the ones that deny and hang up on me, they're the ones that I think process it and then come back and say, "Okay, I'm sorry about my initial reaction. I'm ready now."
Wow.
The couple that did I already tell you that I met with the one biological father of a client where both parents are married? And
I think so. That sounds familiar. Yes.
Yeah, and he came to LA and actually had coffee with me because he had questions.
You know, when we spoke about this, you were going to meet with him in
but I
person.
haven't talked about it.
No, you have not talked about it, because I remember this.
Okay.
And you said he was going to come to LA and that you were going to try to find a place where you guys could meet, you know.
Yeah, we met at Priscilla's.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Where you and I meet.
Yes.
We met, and he was very nice. Their reaction is strange to me. I still don't know how to take it because I haven't heard from him since. And he led me to believe that they are eventually going to reach out to her.
How long has it been since you first reached out on behalf of the client?
Since I first reached out, that was in November, I think, was when I originally reached out. Then I heard from him, the father, in December, right before Christmas. Then I met with him early February.
Okay.
And that was the last I heard from him. And he had lots and lots of questions, wanted to know my process. And, you know, it was, I'm not really sure what they're doing, what ducks they're getting in a row.
Well, have you sent out like a follow-up email or something, or, you know, like, nice meeting you, and by the way, if you want to...
I guess I should probably do that, shouldn't I?
Well, I mean, it's been, you know, it's been
Thanks
over a month.
Thanks for telling me how to do my job, Rich.
Well, it's like a job interview. Like, if you don't hear from them, you want to send a little like, "Oh, well, it's so nice to meet you," and thank you.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I don't want to come off as pushy to people. But I think it's been long enough that it wouldn't be weird for me to reach out again. Because she, of course, reached out back and said, "So now what?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Right. So, yeah, I guess I'll do that.
I would do that.
Thanks for putting lighting a flame under me.
Well, that's why they pay me the bucks.
That's why they pay me the nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So that's my from the trenches. That's my 2 from the trenches stories for
Those
you guys
are good
today.
Stories, Julie.
Thanks so much. Are we ready for another break?
Yeah, let's take one.
All right.
Thank you for listening to CutOff Jeans with Julie Dixon-Jackson and Richard Castle. You can support us by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast. Now, back to the program.
Okay, guys, we are back, and it is story time.
Yay!
This is my friend Drew that we attempted to do a recording months ago, right after, I found his mother, and then we were going to record. Oh, we did record, but he hadn't reached out to her yet. So we kind of trashed that because it wasn't a very good recording anyway. And sorry, Drew. Drew is a sound designer, so he's not going to be happy about that. But anyway, now his story has moved further along, and it's a great story. And Drew is a mensch, and I love him. And this is the first part of my conversation with him.
Great. Let's listen in.
Hey, everybody. I have on the line my friend, Drew Dalzell, who...
Hi there.
Hello. So Drew is an adoptee like me and happens to be a friend of mine. And I helped him along his journey. And I would love for you guys to hear his story. So, Drew...
Yeah.
Do tell.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do the bit of the deep dive and start all the way back at the beginning of this.
That's great.
Julie and I know each other because we did a theater show together way back in the day. I'll mumble years ago now. And at that point, I had no idea you were adopted, and I also had no idea I was adopted.
Right.
I'm someone who's an adult. I found out as an adult that I was adopted. So we did that. And then in a few years after that, so in my 30s, early 30s, it let slip that I was adopted through a weird series of events. My sister was getting married for the second time, and I was at the reception for her. She got married on a boat in Galveston, and then we came back and there was a reception and everybody had been drinking, and I was chatting with one of her friends, and her friend made an offhanded remark about both of us being adopted. And and things like that, it's like, whatever, confused friend, you kind of let it slide at the moment. But then I got back to my hotel, and the weird thing is it lined up with a conversation that I'd had when I was 10 that I also discounted, which was we had friends in from, or family in from Northern Ireland who were distant cousins, and my cousin had mentioned, she said, oh, how does it feel to be adopted? And again, as a kid, that wasn't part of our reality, and I just blew it off.
Yeah.
But now, decades apart from each other, I had these two things which lined up, and it was just like, that's a really weird thing for two people to make a mistake on.
Right. Or to joke about, even. Or
to joke about, or just, but neither one. It was just like, it was like an honest question, and I'm just like, what are you talking about? But being who I am, I having a conversation, don't want to kind of throw anything, so I just kind of moved on and did what it was. But I got home after that trip out to Houston, and what I did is I grabbed my birth certificate. I had a copy, and I'm like, okay, well, there'd have to be some information there. And I looked, and in the corner, I was born in California, and in the corner of my birth certificate, it has a little note that says amended and a date.
Yes.
And I went, okay, that's interesting. So I did my research and checked and found out that there's only 2 reasons in the state of California that you'd have an amended birth certificate and not have the original attached. And the 2 reasons are gender misidentification and adoption. A lot of us discover as adoptees, so many of the laws around birth certificates and adoption and everything seem to be rooted in like 1940s America.
Yeah.
And they've just never changed and never been updated.
Yeah.
And no one wants to touch them.
And nobody cares that isn't part of it.
Yeah. And I've had conversations with friends who are still kind of like, well, we get it. This is an event that someone's trying to protect, and they never want to hear about it again, and they thought it was private. And it's like, yeah, that's all fine and good, and I understand that. But the one person that has no say about it is the adoptee.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I'm right here, and flesh and blood, and I have half that person's DNA. So
yeah, So anyway, I found that out, and I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. And me and my sense of humor, when I saw those 2 options, I went, well, either way, I've got a hell of a story to tell. So I called my folks. I was living in LA at the time, and they were still in San Diego. And got my dad on the phone, and to his credit, he immediately came clean. Okay. And I think had he done anything other than that, it would have made a difficult situation almost untenable.
Yes.
Mom was not so quick to come around. She apparently didn't talk to Dad for a couple of days because she was so upset with him for telling me. And it's hard. The difficult thing about all of it is I never really was able to get to the bottom of what drove all that.
Why they kept it from you in the first place?
Yeah, it's my understanding from a little bit is that Mom tried to tell me once when I was really young, 2 or 3, and I did not react favorably, and she panicked.
Right, and so she thought you were always going to be that way, and so let's just not tell him ever.
Yeah, terrified of rejection. Well, it wasn't that she didn't want to tell me forever. It was like she kept setting milestones.
Right.
Oh, well, I'll make sure he knows before he starts high school. And then I had a rough time in junior high and switched high schools in the middle of all that and did all that. And so she was like, maybe now's not the right time. I'll make sure he knows before he leaves for college.
Yeah.
That was the next milestone. And then at the end of my senior year in high school, I was going to just stay in San Diego and go to a junior college for a couple of years. And I made a very late decision to apply to a college way out of state and went from I'm in town for the next 2 years to I have 7 days left in town and then I leave for college.
Right.
And so she didn't want to do it then.
Right.
And then the next milestone was, okay, well, we'll make sure he's not going to get married without knowing what's going on. Well, I didn't get married until I was 40. Right. So it just kept getting kicked down the road. And then I think by that point it becomes such a big thing that how do you broach this? The kicker on all of this, I have an older sister. My older sister is also adopted.
Right.
And she knew.
Yeah, that's odd to me.
Yeah, again, and so it was this weird, like, and you just look at that and go, in families, how does something like that stay a secret?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this lie of omission that was happening. And it's hard. My dad was a pathologist. Mom was worked as a registered nurse. We would talk about genetics. We would talk about all that things. And and like the replay of all those conversations of going, wow. So every time we had those conversations about family genetics and stuff, so you're just obfuscating
the obvious.
The elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
And then now, over the years, both of my parents have passed away. But over the years, I found out that most of the extended family knew. I've found cousins all over that knew all about it and everything. Yeah. And in fact, most of them, when I was starting to say, like, I had no idea, they were as shocked as I was.
That you had no idea.
Yeah, that I didn't know.
That happens a lot, which I think adds to the feeling of betrayal, I think. That everybody was allowed to know except for me.
Yeah, and again, I think it was at its core. I mean, I need to say this out loud, that the folks that adopted me were great. Right. I had a great upbringing. They did a wonderful job. They are mom and dad and always will be.
Right.
There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
It's one of those things that can be tricky to untangle, especially when you find something like this out as an adult.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, how do you untangle this? But it's hard, because what it does do is it erodes. There's this foundational trust between a child and the parent.
Yeah.
And decades into that relationship, to have something that foundational and go, wow, this was decades of fudging the truth on this.
Yeah.
And it loosens that foundation. It doesn't, you don't want it to, and you don't, but it does.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I wonder, because I always knew. So I don't have that sense of betrayal on that whole side. I wonder if I would feel differently about my parents if it had, though. You know what I mean? Yeah. I had my own set of issues.
Sure.
Because I was adopted.
Well, yeah,
so,
and it's hard. It's also growing up. It's like, are there things that maybe would have made more sense? Like I've dug into it a bit and just gone, wow, you know, like what did I not know? What did I know? Then the other thing that was just kind of difficult about it, mom had been in bad health for years, and so I found this out. And then it was just a few years later that my dad died suddenly of cancer.
Right.
So I never really got to have that conversation with him because I thought I had a lot more time.
Yeah.
Mom had been in bad health for a long time. So we were kind of, everyone in the family was braced for mom to go.
Oh, right.
And she didn't. And instead, dad got a diagnosis and a month later had passed away. And then mom lived 8 more years, but then she slipped into dementia.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that because of the time, because everything else, it's all unresolved.
Yes.
I never got to have any of those conversations. And then I'm also not, I have a great extended family. I'm not super close with most of my extended family. We grew up in San Diego, and my family is Saskatchewan and Ottawa and Prince Edward Island and Northern Ireland and some in Australia and scattered all over the planet. Nobody local.
Right.
You know, I'd see my cousins. I have good relationships with them. I'm in touch with them, but it might be a decade in between times that I've seen them. And I've got a couple of cousins that I've met maybe twice in my life, that are my, you know, immediate first cousins that, you know, they're my mom had 3 sisters and their kids, Aunt May's kids, I met, I think once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of weird things. And then they adopted me when they were 40. So I'm also a generational shift off. I'm anywhere from 10 to 20 years off in age from a lot of.
So there was no one
cousins.
your age that, interesting. Mm-hmm.
So there's a whole bunch of things that came into play there. So it's kind of a fascinating, but that's all, before I even get into starting it, that's where it came up again. So it's also, that means I didn't even really start thinking about looking for my birth parents until deep into my 40s.
Right. Right. So what was the impetus?
I needed time to process, and I think about it, and I look at a lot of my friends who I knew that were adopted, and I have a lot of friends that were adopted and know that, and I know that kind of somewhere in their early 20s is where they finally went, okay, this is something I need to know when I do it. And I look at it and I go, yeah, they spent 15 to 18 years processing.
Yeah.
Until they came up with that. And I kind of look at it, and I think I was 32 or 33 when I found out. I spent 15 or 16 years processing.
Right. Yeah.
It just pushed it back.
Yep.
And, at that point, it's like I had a career going, I'm starting a business, I'm doing all this. And I just always looked at it and it was like, okay, I'm going to find time, but I know this is going to be a big thing to take on. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I can pile one more thing into my life.
Right. Right.
And then I think you hit somewhere in your 40s. I turned 49 in a few weeks. And so I started this, over a year ago now. Actually, it's about this time last year. It's like, you know what, there's never going to be that time. So you do it. And I'd had my wife, Kristen, she'd done Ancestry a few years before. Mm-hmm. And she'd happened to get 2 kits when she did it. And the second kit just sat on the shelf. Uh-huh. And it wasn't that she necessarily bought it for like, hey, Drew, do you want to do this? It was just like, it was there. And if I ever wanted to do it, it was and a little over a year ago, so it would be a year ago last January, I grabbed the kit and I decided now is the time to take the test.
Right.
And
I think you posted about it in the CutOff Jeans group, didn't you?
I did. I posted about it in CutOff Jeans, and I remember because I took a picture of the kit ready to mail and I put it on my Instagram.
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. It just, I'm a sound designer, but I'm also a visual storyteller and everything. So I knew that was a moment.
Yeah.
And so I captured it and did that. And it was just kind of like, well, we'll see what this is. Mm-hmm. And I'd already been a member of the CutOff Jeans podcast because I started following your story when you had your blog.
Right.
And I was reading the blog, and I think I even reached out to you at that point and just said, I've got I've unknown parentage.
Yeah.
And thank you for making this, because a lot of watching what you were going through, digging all of that up, was like, okay, I feel like this is something I might be able to tackle. Mm-hmm. I might be able to do. And so that meant a lot. And then I followed I had joined the CutOff Jeans group, but I hadn't started listening to the podcast yet.
Right.
I'm as you experienced with the pacing that I did a lot of these things, I tend to be very deliberate on these types of decisions. I have to take the time to process. And I do, like, if I buy a new car, I do tons of research and I know every single thing I can. And then I will go out and get the whole transaction done in a day.
Yeah. You're like my husband. He's the same way. I'm very kind of off the cuff, like, let's just do this. Whereas he will vacillate and research and vacillate some more. Yeah. And then do it. Yeah.
So I'd done that, and I'm like, okay, I need to, but I for whatever reason, I wasn't ready to listen to the podcast yet. Yeah. And so I took the test, and you do that, and then you've got 8 weeks to wait. And that's when I started listening to it. And I think over the course of 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I listened all the way up to where I was current. Right. And the podcast at that point, I'd reached out to the group and said that. And then along the way is when you also reached out and did the amazing thing of just saying, hey, when it all comes in, send me the information. I'm going to help. Right. Which I still is just the biggest gift.
I'm happy to do it. When a friend is going through this, it's like it's a no-brainer.
But it's
I want to help.
It is such a huge gift because you get back and I'm like, okay. And I remember because it was the way it happened. I finally got my results back, and you were like leaving for a cruise at the exact same time. It was just this fluke of timing.
Yes.
And I'm like, that. And again, I'm relatively patient on things. So I'm like, yeah, no worries. When we get to it, we get to it. And in the meantime, I'm like, all right, I can start to do the research. And I was starting to figure out links and do it. But then you start to realize, wow, this is like looking back on it now, I can see how you start to build the connections, but starting from cold when you've got nothing,
it's like, wow. No name, nothing.
Yeah. It's like, what do we do? And how do we tackle that? And how does it go through? And it just seems like nothing.
So when I was on the cruise, you went into, was it DNA Detectives, one of the other groups, and asked a really good question.
Well, I knew about triangulation, and I was reading about that, and I was just literally asking, where do you get started? Like, because I'm also as fascinated by the genealogy and the genetics behind it. So I've been building up my trees and doing all that as well. And the response was, someone goes, "Wait, when were you born?" Like, "Oh, I was born in 71 in California." And they go, "Great, here's the person you need to talk to. This is in DNA Detectives." And they send me the link to a person and connect it. Person goes, "Great, I need to know where you were born and do you know the hospital?" And I'm like, "Yeah, here's the information I've got." And they come back and they have the matching. It's like they pull the record, but they basically were able to find my birth name. And apparently there's a trove of microfiche that someone has access to.
I need to find out who that person is.
I can send you the name afterwards.
Good,
I'm sure
I could have used that a few times.
Okay. Yeah, and they're like, if it happens to be in this date range and doing all that, and I don't know how much of it is with a wink and a nod we have access to this, or what.
Yeah, I don't either, because we're not supposed to. But
yeah. but what it is they did that, and the verification was because the case number on that has a code that matches the birth certificate.
Oh my gosh!
So the person that did this for me never asked for that code. Specifically, does not ask for that code. But then when I got the result back, the codes match.
Okay, so that is the first part of my conversation with Drew.
Great. And when we're done with this, I'm going to have to ask Drew how to make this sound better. If he's a sound designer.
He could, and I know he listens, so sometimes I'm horrified by what he might be thinking. But yeah,
I think normally our podcast doesn't sound that bad, but of course, all bets are off now through this Zoom recording, Julie. We'll see.
Exactly. And also what's funny is because he's a sound designer, he was recording from his house, but he was going to send you his track.
Oh, that would have been great.
You could have edited it together, and it would have sounded like we were together. But there was a leaf blower outside his window, and it was driving him crazy. So I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. People are used to this.
That's so funny. Well, anyway, on that note, I am Richard Castle, and I am before all of this, I was a musician. I'm a furloughed musician and songwriter. I still have a website, though, that makes it look like I'm working, richardcastle.com, and you can follow me on the Twitter @CastleSongs.
And I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You can follow me on Twitter @JulesJackson with 2 O's. Follow the podcast on Twitter @CutOffJeansPod. Join us in our Facebook group, Cut Off Jeans Podcast. Answer a question. I'll probably let you in. And email me at julesjackson@cutoffjeans.com. I'm still doing interviews, guys. Love talking to you. Please reach out to me. I have a few lined up, but I always would like more. Love hearing from you guys. Love hearing your stories. I hope you're all staying safe. And on that note.
Yes. What is it, Julie?
The truth is in your jeans.